All right, so we are continuing with our cluster of pesukim from 6 through 11 on the laziness, on, and we will review the pesukim again, but then we're going to do the derech nister today. Okay, so let's do this and review all the ideas simultaneously. Go to the ant, you lazy person, see its ways and become wise. So laziness, Saudi Gon's definition is the compulsive need to avoid all immediate pain and conflict, and go to the ant because it hits your ego to learn from a small creature, even apparently if like learning from an actual ant is not something that like, even though it doesn't make sense to compare yourself to an ant, but still the strategy works. It doesn't have any of these types of managers. That was an accident. We said there that, and then I guess we have to pair it with this. It prepares its food in the summer and gathers its food in the harvest. So we said there, it has a natural instinct for survival and like does it without a seichel. You also have a natural instinct for survival and you have a seichel, which should make you more equipped, but you don't even align yourself with your natural instinct and you don't align yourself with your seichel. So like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Based on that split,
Yeah.
I have an IFS explanation.
Sure.
For this, that they, well, I don't know specifically,
yeah,
but basically, that the ant is acting not based on like either managers or
yeah,
superego or whatever
yeah,
it, like like in like an image that it's trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's just doing it because that's what it does. And that's,
Yeah.
What it needs to do.
Right.
So that's, even though it's talking directly to the lazy person who doesn't have managers or superego or whatever, and it doesn't have anything internally pushing him, but you should still do it anyway.
Right.
You don't have that.
That made me realize that was the try I came up with Rabbi Moskowitz, not through IFS obviously, but the lack of superego thing. The ant is doing it purely because it is practical, and obviously the ant's not thinking in practical terms,
Right.
but like that it's highlighting the lazy person's. Well, I think let's just hash this out because I don't know if my memory is correct, and I don't know what the difference is between what we're saying, but I think if I recall correctly, the way we did it was was that laziness is the antithesis of practicality. Because practicality, the chacham is practical and he's in reality and he realizes that like stuff doesn't happen automatically and he has these needs and therefore he just does what's necessary, whereas and it's highlighting that by saying that the ant is not being told what to do by other things. And so too, like okay, it's starting to come together now. The lazy person, maybe one of the things with the lazy person is they do feel they relate to reality as an authority figure, telling them what to do, which is where a lot of the resistance comes from. I don't know if I'm saying two ideas or one idea, but does that make that part make sense? In other words, like in the same sense that like, well, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you are, at home, like, let's say you're like a teenager at home, like playing video games, and like the mom says like, oh, like take out the garbage, and like he's like lazy, or he tells himself he's lazy, but like that same kid like will go do things that require exertion and like immediate pain and stuff when it's in his own self-interest. It's just the fact that someone's telling them what to do brings up all those like internal resistances to the immediate pain. I feel like I'm mixing together a lot of ideas. Say what you said again. I just want to sort it out, and then
No, I think that is a different idea, but I was saying that he doesn't have any, just like the ant who doesn't have any internal like whatever force pushing him to be motivated and do stuff and get some kind of like achieve some kind of image or whatever. So the lazy person also doesn't have that,
right?
And the ant can do it, so you can.
Yeah.
Like you should act even though you don't have that image driving you.
Right. So I guess what you're saying is the opposite of what I'm saying, which we need to figure out now, right? Because what I'm saying is that the problem with a lazy person is it is caught up in like internal psychodynamic phenomenon of like being told what to do, and you're saying the lazy person lacks that.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I was thinking along. I was gonna say I was thinking along the lines of this episode, but I was thinking along the lines of what you said after he said it.
Yeah. Chronology. Time doesn't matter.
Yes. So I think the like the Atel doesn't have like a superego pushing him to like accomplish things.
Yeah.
Because like he doesn't, let's say, or let's say he doesn't have like a feeling of like I've got, because if he did, then that would motivate him to do things. And so he's saying,
unless what I'm saying is true.
Right.
Yeah. Sounds more like a deal. Yeah, but like it's a excuse that he might have is like, I'm like not driven or something. Like it's targeting that. Like he feels like, oh, some people are driven because they've got
You're right.
like like a super good that's like like driving them to be like how to like get things done.
Right.
And it's saying look at the ant. Right. The ant doesn't have like that.
Right.
But still seeing the practicality, and that's why it's like getting things done.
Right. This is actually reminding me, I mean, this is going slightly off course of what we were doing here, but it kind of reminds me of what I think you said in one of your examples of like, there's a part of you also that says, I want someone to tell me what to do, or I want someone to be like on my case about it.
Yeah.
And like, that's clearly not true, because even when someone is on your case about it, like it doesn't necessarily help, and like, that's also being highlighted by the ant here, because what it's literally saying with the ant is not that it doesn't have an internal thing. It's saying that that there's no like the queen is not out there with the worker ants telling them what to do. Like the ant, I mean, that's like the quality that we admire about ants, is like they organize themselves and like they do other stuff on their own,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just from my own personal experience about this, having someone who's like telling me like you got to do this, it does help make it a little bit easier, because that's like there's like an immediate pain of like the person being like, hey, have you done your Macaulay application yet?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, not yet. And then like that's like immediately painful, which can like prop me forward.
I gotta pause this one. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just want to pause this recording. So I was going to say that even though that might be the case, that like it gives you, that's almost utilizing the strategy we said about like by creating the mini immediate pains of someone reminding you.
Yeah.
But I do think that it can provoke like a resistance. And it is interesting that I think both of these can coexist within laziness, of like someone being on your case can prompt you to do it, and something on your case could have the total backfiring effect.
I guess I'd say there's two different aspects of laziness, the superego. That a person can like think that like they're not driven, but but it's saying that even if you're not driven, you should just do it because it's practical. And there's also the fact that like what you're saying, that a person can have specifically a resistance to someone saying, like telling them what to do, which could cause them to become entrenched in it. But like, I'm not sure how that's tied into avoiding immediate pain.
Good question.
Like it seems like another characteristic that could cause, let's say, the actions of like similar actions to laziness.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it.
I think what happens is when you are in the framework of the superego and someone tells you you should be doing this, then the part of you that feels ashamed or whatever the emotion is about not doing it causes you to just want to avoid the whole thing. In other words, like there's a part of you that's not doing this thing, and then that painful feeling is awakened when the person reminds you that you should be doing it. And one response to that is to do it, to avoid that painful stimulus. The other one is to just push it even further out of the way to avoid being in that situation.
I guess maybe let me tell me this what you're saying. That,
Yeah.
I'd say it's like a self-defense mechanism that Axel has, that when he's getting immediate pain from someone telling him to do the thing, then he I'd say boxes it off as like a super ego.
Yeah, yeah. I just have a good or a good example of this is like going back to my lab with human behavior as in Shell Habit. And it's funny because like the school was not very big. It was just like one hallway, and like there were times when like students would have a deadline, let's say like for a graduation thing or a college or a project, and like it's funny to watch them actively try to avoid a certain person, like a certain teacher or administrator. Like there's not that many places you can avoid, but like they're avoiding them because they don't want that that painful experience to be evoked in themselves by being reminded from the outside, as opposed to being eager for that stimulus so that would motivate them to do it. I mean,
yeah, because that's like a type of resist.
Yeah,
almost.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so then we said, how long, oh lazy person, will you? Yeah.
I think also in that example, part of why they're not eager to see the person to motivate them to do it, they probably don't want to do it in the first place.
Yes, right. It's compounding the original source of the laziness. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's actually a point worthy to like just explicitly state here, that there's the initial stimulus of pain, of immediate pain that you don't want from the thing.
Like writing the essay.
Right, like writing the essay. And then there's like the more you go on, the more immediate pains or threats of immediate pain become attached to the thing. Like the looming thing of I'm going to do poorly on this essay because I pushed it off for so long. So then that pain gets attached, and then the people telling me that I should do it, and then like all of these things like start to supercharge the thing that you were trying to avoid in the first place, making it even like more distasteful to your inner oculus.
So then you like avoid it even more.
You avoid it even more, right?
It gets bigger and bigger. Yeah,
it's really bad. There's a hold on. There's a great Mark Twain quotation.
Thinking about a Mark Twain quotation about ants this whole time.
Oh, really? Is it? I'm not familiar with that one. Oh,
it's not really quote. It's more of a dialogue.
Yeah. Hold on. Frog quote. I got to give you the. There's these or not unpublished, obviously they're published if I'm offering to give you a book, but these posthumously published writings from Mark Twain that were along the lines of what you were saying, like same sugya and same like flavor, but I think you would enjoy them. It's called Letters from the Earth is the name of the thing, but it's like a bunch of stuff. So I don't know if this is actually relevant, I'm gonna read it though. Mark Twain famously said that if the first thing you do, sorry, that's not a good version of the quote. Oh, here we go, this is the version of the quote. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So not exactly the thing, but like it's just going to get worse if you just like leave it there, and all the resistances are just going to keep building. Yeah.
Interesting quote.
Yeah, it's a great one. I've actually used that. It's kind of like the Lake on the Mullah thing, but not really. Like it's like hitting you in an irrational way about something. Like I would never have to eat a frog, but like somehow it finds its place where like, okay, yeah, this is basically just like eating a frog. Like that's never gonna be pleasant, but I might as well just get it out of the way.
Like somehow, even though the frog is worse than what you're gonna have to do, probably.
Yeah.
Like somehow it's easier to see it in that case.
Yeah.
In the frog.
Yeah, because it's extreme, and I think that's one of the reasons for the Mishlei style of the hyperbole. Mm-hmm. Like, lazy guy puts his hand in the dish and doesn't even draw it out to eat. Like, really? Like, that's ridiculous, And then you see that in yourself in like these other areas, like signing up for TurboTax.
Another example of laziness came to mind. About the avoiding avoiding the stimulus.
Yeah.
So in 11th grade, I was late to turn in the paper, and my teacher told me that I could turn in whenever I want.
Oh, that's the worst. That's like Hashem, according to those, that's like Hashem creating human beings to live forever. Right. That was that's the whole thing. That's why, like, according to those, that we were going to be living forever, or that in Gan Eden we'd be living forever.
Oh, so you don't have.
You would just. you would just push off all learning and perfection forever,
Yeah.
and then just never do it. Yeah.
Yes. So that was the paper was in like March.
Yeah.
So like for a while it was like painful to interact with with the teacher, but then he like didn't bring it up a lot. So then I like felt comfortable interacting with him, but like it was like painful to like think about like the paper because it was
Yeah.
getting later and later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I ended up doing it like in the summer.
Yeah.
Like I got like an incomplete and then had to like
Yeah.
like do the paper in the summer and like it was incredibly late.
Yeah. It's the worst.
Yeah.
All these tragic laziness stories.
But I
Yeah.
want to add to contrast to the word thing before.
Yeah.
That if the laziness is like if the thing is generally something you want to do,
Mhm.
let's say you want to go running, but
Yeah.
you're just too lazy to get up and actually go.
Yeah.
I think in that situation, then having like an outside motivation might be beneficial to the person.
Yeah.
broadly
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah. I think for that, I mean, not to get too much into atomic habits, but like the oftentimes and this is actually another Mishlei pasuk. I don't know. We didn't talk about this round, but I might have mentioned before that the path of the lazy person is fenced with thorns, and something. I don't know what the rest of the
Like
pasuk
a
is.
broken fence or something.
That's another thorny, broken down fence. Lazy person. I'm thinking. So this one, there's different ways that the Mefarshim interpret it about what does it mean that it's fenced with thorns. One interpretation is that you have a path, but then on the sides are thorns. The way I learned it was that there's a path, but there's like a wall of thorns in front of it. So that's how the lazy person feels. But the thing about like these, if you've ever walked through a forest where there are like thorny things, you push through, like you could push, like if you just like slowly walk into the thorns, then it'll just cut you off, right? But if you just like push through it, that initial like wall of thorns, then you'll have a path. And like I feel like in the running example, or at least the vibe I was picking up there is like you have the drive, but like the initiation of the thing can be painful. And sometimes that's the only problem with laziness. And sometimes having someone else to push you just through that initial wall can like get you there, but then there's other stuff where they have to like literally push you the whole way, and like that doesn't sound like the running thing, the running.
Right, because often in running, it's usually not an authority figure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, right. I saw a pie chart about that recently. I forgot all the jokes in the pie chart, but it was like part of the big part of the pie was like time I should be telling myself that I should be running, and then like then a small sliver of time I'm actually running, and then the largest sliver time I'm sitting in my running clothes in my room, like watching YouTube videos, Yeah. All right. So then we had continuing the review. See, it's good review. How long will you, lazy person, will you do that? Will you sleep? When will you get up from your sleep? A little bit of sleep, a little bit of slumber, a little bit of folding your hands to recline, and your poverty will come like a traveler, and your lack like an armed person. So one of the things we said there was he is. If you say it's a tzivui, they saying just sleep a little bit, just rest a little bit, just fold your hands a little bit, and this will happen. So what he's doing is one of the tricks a lazy person uses is he thinks he's not making a decision, but really he has decided upon his course of activity. And so Shlomo is like reinforcing that, saying, oh yeah, you're choosing to sleep. So you've chosen to sleep the whole day away. Okay, go ahead, make a choice, but like know that you're choosing to do the thing, And then there was my idea from 2 times ago, from Thursday, was you're creating last minute panic. You're saying, imagine you wake up and you just don't have any food, and then you're saying that this is what's going to happen, and you don't like immediate pain. Well, it's going to be immediate pain, Yeah.
Yeah, and also,
there was a couple more, yeah. But
that it's saying, it's saying, or until when are you going to do this? Because he's saying, oh, it's just like it's like 5 more minutes.
Right. That's a way to break his timelessness.
Yeah.
Haze.
He's 5 more minutes the whole morning away.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It all adds up.
Yeah.
That'll be the other one. Yeah. The not boom.
Yeah.
You're poor. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the derech, which is on page Nun Ches. Okay. So one of the, when I was looking through this, so he quotes a lot of Mamarei Chazal, and I was thinking about that in general. So like the proper way to do that is to like think into each Mamarei Chazal on its own and like learn it in its original thing. But I feel like when Mefarshim quote strings of Mamarei Chazal, they are quoting it with the intent that you'll do like a Bikun type learning of it, right? Like not in other words, like you're not just like reading it and then moving on, but you're also not delving into it in its proper context. Like they're just quoting it, Like I feel like that's what the balance I want to strike with these students of Chazal he quotes, because he's going to go through a flurry of them, So let's just like try to get an idea for each of them.
I feel like how Rashi like quotes.
Right, but I feel like when you're learning Rashi, and maybe this is just my good prejudice with Rashi, not my bad prejudice with Rashi, is that part of what Rashi does is he will select one, and I guess I'm getting a lot of this from you familiar with the What's Bothering Rashi series with Victor Bonchek? Yeah, that's a really good book or series of books to like learn how to learn Rashi. So two of the things that he helped me appreciate is, number one, Rashi is selecting particular Ma'amari Chazal from all of them. And knowing why he selects that one is part of the process of learning Rashi. And then the second thing is he will sometimes edit the Ma'amari Chazal or only quote parts of it. And like thinking about why he does that or presents it in that way is also significant. So I do think that if you're learning Rashi, let's say like in a more superficial way, like doing it as your Shnai Mikra, then that's like an adequate way to do it. But in terms of like if you really want to learn Rashi, then I think that it requires more thought. But then there's other like Rishonim who will just like string together tons and tons of Ma'amar Chazal to like paint a picture of a sugya. Like the Menorah Tamor, I think, is famous for that. He collates like tons and tons of like ethical sayings on like one area. Rabbeinu Yonah will sometimes do that. Avram ben Ramam in Hamas Gilov Hashem will sometimes do that. And I feel like just the fact that they're quoting so many of them, they don't really expect you to take each one and like learn it inside and then move on to the next sentence in their book. Like they want you to like get an idea and like move on. I don't know if I'm wrong about all this, but like the Meiri is I think like that in many cases. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes the most sense to me. Like, because if it's quoting a lot of different mamaris, that's all.
Yeah.
Each one's going to have a different idea.
Right.
And if you're quoting one, then you're referencing that idea. If you're quoting like three, then realistically, it's probably referencing like the Palace Java.
Right. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
The common qualities.
Exactly. Okay. So in the hidden method path of the pasuk, then it's teaching you that you should strive in your limud chachma. V'yadua, and let's use chachma in the broadest possible sense here. Okay, so we could be talking about Mishlei chachma, we could be talking about chachma satorah, we could be talking about chachma in science, whatever the chachma is. It could be a practical skill of chachma. I think this will apply to all of them. V'yadua shalimud chachma tzarech hishtadlus chazaka v'torei rav. Known that learning chachma requires strong effort and tremendous toil. V'af kishiyagi l'shleimus, tzarech l'shkida v'hatmada. And even when you arrive at perfection, you need diligence and how do people translate hatmada, like a matmid?
Like sitting.
Yeah, I didn't mean in Yiddish. Yeah. Say again? Constancy? Yeah, constancy is pretty good. Yeah, I feel like it doesn't quite. I see why you want to go to Yiddish. No, but I feel like it doesn't quite have the connotation. I feel like the English idiom phrase, which we don't really use anymore, is like burning the midnight oil, like of just like constantly like being involved in it, in all waking hours. Shalot tishkach mimenu, so that you don't forget it, or it doesn't become forgotten from you. Kamamar Mazal, like Chazal say, okay, here's an example. Yom ta'azveni yomaim ezveka. You heard that one before? The Torah says, if you abandon me for one day, I'll abandon you for 2 days. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to think about that. Like, why is that? What is that phenomenon? That if you, like, it's, I've heard that another, I guess, a modern thing that Chazal couldn't have known about is escalators. Right? You've heard the escalator muscle? Mm-hmm. About how, like when you're in development in your learning or your perfection or whatever it is, so then there is this fantasy that if you stand still, then you're just kind of like going to plateau. But it's like if you're on an escalator that's going down and you're trying to walk up it. If you stand still, then you're going to move down. Like it's for every day that you are not moving forward, you're actually like losing ground. And so like, what is that phenomenon? Like, why is it that in limud chachma it's like that? Yeah.
Maybe it's because you're like a person is not naturally inclined toward that.
Okay.
And like their instincts and all of that, like it like sort of and the world is like all is pulling them in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So it's sort of you have to keep if you're not like vigilant in like pushing yourself toward chachma,
Yeah.
and like practical things or instinctual things will pull you in the opposite direction.
Okay, that's definitely a possibility for the statement of Chazal, okay, of the abandonment thing. I wonder whether that is what the Meiri is saying or not, because he's talking about shikha. And like that also reminds me like the Rambam that I read in whatever shir we did for the Rambam Wednesday night. The Rambam being a Tom thing of like you should learn your entire life because kol zman shelo lomed hum shocheach, you know, ufin yisru blah 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 something that the Rambam said, like don't let these matters depart from your heart, you know. So, like shikha seems to be like the angle that is being emphasized in like those statements, and that's something what he's emphasizing here, you know. I think. I mean, shlo tishakeach, you know. Now you could interpret shikha as being tied to like the fact that you're pulled in the other direction, you know. But I just want to give some thought to the possibility of like shikha, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you know, let's read on because actually he thinks I think he quotes a. Yeah. This next statement also. With a brayta shel avos amru. So in the brayta shel avos, which is that probably avos Rabbi Nachman? Yeah. Yachol adam lilmud Torah be'eter shanim u'lashachacha b'shtei shanim. It's possible for a person to learn Torah in 10 years and then forget it in 2 years. Yeah, so I remember one of the most frightening things that Rabbi Malkowitz told us when, I believe this was like I feel like I was in my 4th year of yeshiva. And this is already to the point where like, let's say like a lot of guys were in yeshiva for the 4 years that they were in college, you know, and then they left, you know. And I remember Rabbi Moskowitz telling us that like you can be a lamdan in yeshiva for like 4 years. I think he said I've seen people who were like real lamdanim and really like learning, you know, attached to learning, and then they start their job and their work and they become balabatim. Like all of that ability to think and the focus on learning, just like within a matter of like a year, you know. And it's like a scary thought, and that definitely has a lot to do with what you were saying, which is the attachment to the value of chachma to resist being pulled in the other direction. But this is an interesting thing that like you learn for 10 years and then in 2 years, like you just, you know, yeah, scary, really scary. And I've said this before, but like, I have no idea where I would be in my learning if I didn't teach for a living. Like if teaching didn't, you know, prompt me to like spend almost literally every waking hour like involved in learning. Like I don't know where I would be. Like I'd like to think that I would be attached to learning and I would still like learn, but who knows? Like I could have gotten caught up in whatever else I ended up doing in my life, you know? Yeah. So that's and then let's see if let's read the statements he quotes and then we'll until we get to the next point and then think about all of them together. Oh, see, all right. So I guess that's something separate then. Okay, so those two statements are together, right? So if you abandon me one day, I'll abandon you for 2, and then you can learn Torah in 10 years and then forget it in 2. So what would the shikha thing? Because then he's going to go on to shleimus halimud, perfection of learning, which sounds like a new topic. And then again, I got to read that wrong. I'll just read it on computer because I'm lazy. This is in the Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah 110.
Well, I think the thing that's bothering me about the shikha thing is let's say a person spends, let's say the first year of a person's learning, they spend learning, let's say, like Hilchos Shabbos.
Yeah.
Are they going to forget that in 2 years? Like by the 3rd year, do they still remember that? Like, right.
It's good. Meaning, is it like content specific or is it like
because if it's like since over time you forgot things, if you're not constantly like refreshing your knowledge, then that's one thing. But if it's like you learn Shabbos, year 1 and you remember it through year 10, but year 12 you forget it.
Right. That's why my intuition is that we're not talking about forgetting content, even though that might be a manifestation of this. And that's why I'm thinking, let's say like with all of, the expression like it's like riding a bike, right? Where like once you learn how to ride a bike, then you can just always go back and ride a bike. I feel like in lots of areas of Chachma, it's not like that. Like if you're out of it for a while, you just like can't make like the intuition and the skill set, like is gone. If you don't, it's like maybe exercise is a good, like is a good muscle as well. Of like if you like your Chachma
You like atrophy.
it atrophies, like your Chachma muscles atrophy. Yeah.
So yeah, like in high school, I would like write a lot.
Yeah, that's a good
Write
example.
tons of stuff,
Yeah.
and like I kind of like petered off in yeshiva.
Yeah.
And now like I every so often try to go back to it, and it's just like
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah. That's a good example, and that's an example of like I think thinking about other chachmos, of which writing is one, like other crafts. I think that's a good example. We just read the Rambam that I was going to read. Emasai Chayv Lilma. This is Talmud Torah 110. Ad Emasai Chayv Lilma Torah. Until when is a person obligated to learn Torah? Ad Yom Moso, until the day he dies. Shneimar Ufin Yasuru Milvavcha Kol Yemei Chayacha, lest you remove them from your heart all the days of your life. V'chol zman shelo yasov v'limud hu shacheach. So that's interesting. The entire time that you're not osek b'limud, then you forget. So it seems like the hisaskus b'limud, like being involved in it, is the thing that prevents you from forgetting. And again, that doesn't mean that you're going to like forget individual sugyas, because that definitely happens. But I feel like the thrust I'm getting from these things is that it's like the investment of the energy into learning and like those skills and those like interests, and and then also like not being what's the phrase, holek ba'atzat roshaim, and being amad b'derech chatayim, and being yoshev b'moshav leitzim, like like that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think the writing was a good example.
Yeah.
I think I used to be like a pretty good writer.
Yeah.
My skills have like definitely like gone way down. Like I found when I was after like 2 years in Israel, I was like, I was like really like not writing while I was in Israel, and like I just like didn't have the same ability.
Yeah. That's a side personal note. That's kind of why like I am worried about that for myself, in terms of I think I need, because literally every summer I would write an article, write or completely like revise an article every day until last summer. And last summer I didn't do it. And like I need to carve out time to do that this summer. Otherwise I'm worried that that's going to happen with my writing. Yeah.
I just feel like it's like a little bit of a different quality with Torah though.
Yeah.
Because like with the writing, like I was just thinking like myself with math. Like I used to be very good at math.
Yeah.
And then I spent like 3 years not doing math at all. And now I just can't do math.
Yeah.
Like that's just like a forgetfulness of information. That's like forgetting it. So
I definitely, that's what I think it is, the same thing of like forgetting information. So and I think there's like an overlap here. Like Torah has that in it, but there's also something about like
there's a much like just broader element of Torah that when you're involved in Torah, it's affecting you.
Yeah.
And it's developing you and changing you as a person.
Oh, so that is different what I thought also. Yeah.
Like it's not like a intellectual forgetfulness, but you're just lacking the whole system that you've been operating in.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you can't have that unless you're intimately involved with it.
Right. But why does it make it why does it abandon you for 2 days? I mean, and again, maybe that comes back to what Zev was mentioning of like, another like, why, if you abandon me for 1 day, I'll abandon you for 1 day. That's the Havamina. Come on, Milan, you abandon me for 1 day, I'll abandon you for 2 days. Like that, the downgrading seems to be at an alarming pace. It definitely has to do with what you're saying. I just something I feel like I'm missing. Yeah.
So I think the experience I've had that most similar to like learning, like thinking about Torah is thinking about coding, because coding is like a very like
Or codes now.
It's not only is it like not only they're like thinking about like writing code, but it also like I've seen that like will like shape the way that I'm like thinking about like things in general.
Yeah.
And when there's been periods where like I've been not not writing code for a while, and then when I try to like get back into it, it takes not only it's not only like I need to like remember the skills, but like the way that, like my patterns of thinking have like shifted away from that. So I need to like get back. Like, I need to like recover like the like thought pattern.
Yeah, that is another dimension. So what do we have on the table now? So we have the lack of natural inclination and really inclination the other way. Okay. Then we have the thought patterns and getting your mind into that way of thinking. Then we have the effect that the Torah has on actually developing you. And like, I'm trying to think if the word momentum is appropriate there, because I do feel like there are momentums in Torah development that can be like cultivated and then lost.
That's true. I don't think it's exactly what I'm.
Yeah. So what are you saying? I also think it's not exactly what you're saying.
It's different.
And then there's stuff I was saying, which I don't remember what that is anymore. Or was I not saying anything? I feel like I said something.
If we went to other examples, we forgot what we were saying.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I was not saying, but I think it is I do think that identity is an important part of this thing. And I don't know if that's what he's saying, but like I was thinking about this with the shkida and the hasmada thing, and the and like the hishtadlus and the toreach rav, that like when you're actively working on something, that becomes a part of your identity. And I feel like once you, let's say like a person who like learns in yeshiva for 10 years, you know, and then once you stop doing that and you no longer have that identity or self-image, then it's easy for like, and you take on, you're going to take on a new self-image and identity, you know? So then it's easy for the dynamics of that new self-image and identity to like overpower the Torah identity and then to lose all the stuff that was being propped up by those low lishmas, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, like let's say you're in yeshiva for 10 years and you like have a healthy low lishma image of like a Talmid Chacham, like if you're involved in learning, you know, and let's say like you dive into like some intensive thing like the business world or like medical school or whatever, and then that takes over your life and you, all of your psychological forces are mobilized to like become like a successful doctor or successful like businessman, you know. And meanwhile, the way that you viewed yourself as a Talmid Chacham, that self-image and all of the healthy Torah habits that were attached to it, like fall by the wayside because you've abandoned that, you know. And that can lead to like this type of like sudden, like drop off the precipice of like your involvement there, you know. That's why like being involved in, like, you know, I know this is like Hilchos Deos, the part that we haven't gotten to yet, but like, you know, the Rambam's thing about your friends and your social environment keeping you attached to, like, if you have a social environment of Chachamim and Tzadikim, that's very, very important for keeping you attached to Chachma and Tzedek, because that's going to affect who you hang out with is how you define yourself, or at least helps you to maintain how you define yourself. And if you're in a community of Chachamim and Tzadikim, or a chevra of Chachamim and Tzadikim, then that'll help you to like maintain those identities. Whereas if you don't, then you won't. I think I've taken it too far afield from what he's saying, but like it's important anyway. Yeah.
So, in terms of like practically how to avoid this, like assuming because
Learn for 10 years and then learn for another 10 years. Yeah.
Because assuming a person needs to like use the other pranasa,
Yeah.
which you know, almost definitely like endorses, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Talmud Torah and derech.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So like there's like surrounding himself with like a community of like Hasidim and Tzaddikim, and people who are like
Chachamim and Tzadikim, but
oh.
go on. You're thinking Pirkei Avos.
Yeah, like it didn't sound
Yeah.
yeah. So like besides like let's say like you know, let's say to a certain degree a person can choose the social environment but to a certain degree not.
Yeah.
So like how else can a person like to deal with this issue?
Right. I mean, in full, that's the presentation that I give my 12th graders about like how to remain Jewish on a non-Jewish college environment, you know.
Yeah.
So like there's lots of techniques, but I would say that in terms of the Meiri, the thing that becomes most clearly from the Meiri is being kovea itim laTorah, like as part of your daily regimen of like, because that's the thing is, as long as you're not abandoning it then you're osik in it. So no, you might have to diminish your quantity. You will have to diminish your quantity, but the important thing is continuing to be osik in it, and being kovei itim is the best way to do that. You know. The other thing is being kovei itim be good friendships. You know, of like you know let's say like with me, then I have my. It's funny, I was talking about this with our here the other day. Like, I have two categories of chavrusas. There are the categories of chavrusas that is only learning, and we really just don't talk about personal stuff. And then there's the categories of chavrusas that are more like human perfection, like talking about like life issues and stuff, and like being involved with that. So like being kovei itim with those people, and and that's something that like I've actively had to like, because all of my like good friends, not all my good friends, but my best friends who I was with in yeshiva have like moved away, a lot of them, then I have to like constantly like keep up being kovei itim for that. And I think those two things, like the first thing addresses what the Meiri was saying and what the Rambam was saying about being osik, and then the being kovei itim but good friendships is like the Hilchos Deos Perek Vav of the Rambam, of like, even if the immediate environment you're in and like is not in the line with those values, and like you're working with people who just don't care about learning, you know, and like that could sweep you away, always returning to that anchor of someone who is a good a friend, you know, the Rambam's highest level of friendship, and then like working on attaining the good for both of you in that way on a regular basis is like a good way to like stay connected. I'd say like those are the most two pressing things.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, should we stop for today and then continue tomorrow for this? Okay, we okay going on with this Meiri thing? I mean, I only wanted to do this initially for like that one day, but I feel like this is good stuff. Like, even though we're not doing typical Mishlei.
Yeah, if you would have told me like when I want to do a deep dive into Atlas for 2 weeks, I would have been like, oh, that's gonna be too painful.
Yeah.
But now that we're doing it, I want.
All right, good.